Saturnalia is a third-person survival horror game published by Santa Ragione back in 2022. You play as 4 characters experiencing an intergenerational storyline tied to the haunting traditions of an ancient village in Sardinia, Italy, a region rich with unique folklore. The player controls one of 4 characters, Anita, Sergio, Claudia and Paul, trapped within the ancient village of Gravois. A ritual has been held and a monster's on the loose. The game features some really unique graphics, looking more like a 1970s giallo Italian movie, with some comic influence in there too. The game as a whole drew my eye, being set in Italy and reminded me a lot of the old Siren series, where a cast of unique characters were trapped in a Japanese village with a ritual being held. There are obtuse puzzles, just like this one, clue gathering, just like this one, and a lot of running and hiding, just like this one. All 4 characters are in the village for their own reasons, and only by discovering why and solving their own personal tasks can one reach the true climax of the village's story. Some characters are with you from the start, and some are unlocked during the story. It's got a very unique and quite rough gameplay, being thrown in an intentionally windy and slightly randomised layout of a village. You're likely to get lost and turn the wrong corner, or get chased into a back alley by the creature that haunts the place. The creature itself is fascinating in that its behaviour changes as the night progresses. One creature can become 2 or more if you're unlucky. The actually ancient ritual of Saturnalia was a one-day event to honour Saturn and included the sacrifice of young pigs. I felt like a young pig, being served up as I ran through the town. At multiple points I wanted to nope out, but as I got more used to the mechanics I got sucked deeper and deeper in. Characters can die, can be captured, each have their own unique abilities. If all of them die, the village resets, shifting and changing its layout in this roguelike type gameplay. It's great. In today's video, I'm going to be diving into the story of the game Saturnalia, what happens in Gravois on the ritual night, who or what the creature is stalking the streets, and what sort of ritual our 4 protagonists have stumbled upon. We're going to touch on the various design choices the game chose to make quite a haunting experience, and expect spoilers as we dive in from this point, as we start with our characters. I'm going to summarise our 4 protagonists for you so you can get a better lay of the story. Firstly, there's Anita Giannini, a geologist that came to Gravois to study the local mines for a year. During her stay, she fell in love with the local priest, Damiano, and they had an affair, and she ends up pregnant. The setup for her arc is to reunite with Damiano and escape the village with him. Of course, nothing's that simple here. Her ability is her map and her compass. She can point you in the direction of any landmark she's visited previously, and it's especially useful when the street layout doesn't make a whole lot of sense. She stayed in a villa with 2 other gentlemen, Paul and Sergio. As she's packing to leave, she realises that Paul's taken her work documents, and he's most likely the second character you'll link up with. He's returned to Gravois searching for his parents, last seen in the village over 30 years ago. He was an adopted orphan, and he discovers a letter warning him never to return, so he decides to investigate. The villagers are uncooperative at best, and so the night of the festival, he's got free rein to investigate properly. His arc is one of finding the history of the town, his missing parents, and Paul is armed with a flash camera that he can use to stun the creature if it gets too close, or to photograph different clues and evidence to show the rest of the team. Certain clues in this game require certain characters to make sense of them. In the villa is also Sergio, conked out on his father's morphine and asleep in the villa. You have to find some naloxone in the village to wake him back up. Once you do, he's playable. He was sent away from the village when he was 15 amidst rumours that embarrassed his family. He had returned 30 years later to care for his father, who's stuck in an iron lung due to a mining-related injury. His arc is to connect with his long-lost lover, who he believes is somewhere in the village still. Armed with his flashy mobile phone, he can call characters to either join him or switch perspectives provided he has signal. In a game such as this, it's akin to teleportation. It's very useful. Our last protagonist, and one you'll find somewhere after Paul, but perhaps before Sergio, is Claudia, a local to the village. She's never left, and when she was only 7, her aunt committed suicide. On the evening of the game, her father brings her to St. Lucia's masked mass. It's a mouthful. Gravois' most ancient ritual. She actually escapes the church rather than joining the other villagers, and to recruit her, you have to break into her house and find her aunt's diary. Her arc's about discovering the truth of her aunt's suicide and bringing justice. She's small enough to fit through tight spaces, and she has this ritual mask, allowing her to cover her eyes and keep most of her senses. The creature becomes aggressive if you look at it, or if it sees you. It's quite a nifty trinket. If her dad spots her, he'll drag her home, so you're almost contending against two monsters, whereas the other characters aren't. With our important characters covered, let's get into what happens on the 21st of December with their arrival. We open our scene in Sardinia, 1989 to be specific. Something has escaped out of the minds of the town of Gravois and is stunned by the flash of a camera. Our story actually starts a few hours before with Anita. 4 months pregnant and following a routine ultrasound, she's returned to the village to pack her things and inform Damiano, the father, that she'll be leaving soon. With no intention of giving birth in Gravois, she hopes that the fact the child's a boy will change the priest's mind. She's been here for a year and she's leaving tomorrow. Deciding to meet the man at Mass, she heads to church. The village festival is about to begin, and that's where most people will be headed anyway in the village. Getting there, the door's shut. No late entry, apparently. Deciding to head back to the villa, she hopes to see her friend Paul and his friend Sergio. The villa is owned by one Tekla Merger, an old hag of a lady who we won't be seeing much of until later on. Heading back to the villa, it's mostly empty. Sergio's conked out on the sofa and we decide to light a fire to keep him warm. Light in this game comes from matches. You right click and you can strike one. They're a limited resource and you find them around the town, so have fun with that. We start packing and day soon turns to night. The only thing we're missing is a map of the mines. Anita was appraising the place for a buyer, so we can't leave without those. They're the main reason we're here. Checking his room, there's no Paul and there's no map, just a photo of Tekla and her sister. Paul's left us a note. He's gone to check out the mines using our map while the festival has everyone busy. Sergio still sleeps and so we have to go find him on our own. Gravois at night is a very oppressive place. It's pitch black and silent. All the villagers are locked away at home, shutting their doors if we approach, with these mysterious eye symbols drawn to ward something away. The gate we drove in through is locked shut, so all there is to do at this moment is find Paul. He's hunched over by the entrance to the mine. The cutaway at the start was the monster charging him. He was the one who warded it off with a camera. Something is stalking the streets of Gravois. As we get our map, the church bells ring to signal that Mass has ended, and we decide to finally break the news to Damiano. The bells for the place ring as we enter, the bell tower itself locked tight. Rattling approaches as something's entered the church behind us, drawn to the noise. Anita has her first encounter with the creature, and she hides in a confessional booth to avoid it. The creature quite kindly signals its approach with this sort of rattling noise, and as it dies down we realise that Paul is in danger, so we head back to warn him, knowing we'll have to find another route to Damiano another time. We could climb up the side of the church if we only had some bolt cutters. We inform Paul of our encounter with the creature. He tells us he's here to find out the truth of his missing father, and that he'll help us while he uncovers his truth. He heads off and we're left with finding our way to Damiano. We'll come back to Paul later. Finding some bolt cutters in the village, we manage to make our way up the side of the church, thanking God that Damiano's safe. We tell him we're having a boy and he says that we need to find somewhere to hide, leading us down out of the bell tower. He says it's all happening again, something he once saw as a child. This isn't the first time that a creature has stalked Gravois. When we enter the church, he locks us out of the bell tower, summoning the creature by ringing it. He planned to kill us along with the evidence of his affair, and he's some priest, right? What a nice guy. We can get back to Anita in a little while. but while she's preoccupied by the creature, Paul went back to the villa to wake up Sergio. Sergio was unfortunately using some of his father's morphine to relax. It's a good thing Paul found some Naxalone to wake him up, or he might have slept through this whole ordeal. Sergio, while caring for his father, found a one-way ticket to Manchester with his lover Bruno's name on it. Unfortunately, if the ticket's here and Bruno hasn't used it, he may well be trapped in Gravois too, or worse. Sergio awakens to Paul thrusting a Polaroid of the creature in his face. Fortunately, he's seen this mask before, in a book Bruno once showed him. He heads to Gravois' castle to find the Book of Rituals, and hopefully, our first clue on what stalks us. The book states that when the planets align, a creature emerges from the tunnels beneath Gravois, and this happens every 30 years. There's even a planetarium in the castle where we can confirm this. Every 30 years the planets align. We head back to the villa, encountering the beast at a wrong turn as we do, and the creature stalks the streets and gives you an audible warning when it's near. If you see it or it sees you, it will chase you, and you can either run somewhere safe or to a hiding place like a dumpster or a cupboard, just don't get spotted climbing in. When we arrive back to the villa, the phone's ringing, and it's the landlady, Tekla. She says to come and find a house, that she'll leave a light on for us. Heading there, she warns us to get out of the city. 60 years ago, her sister was taken by the creature. If we can find her remains, she'll help us escape. She warns us not to look at the creature, it's a dangerous thing to do at this time of night. With the nature of the ritual coming every 30 years, and the creature being documented, Sergio rests at the villa. Paul's busy rootling through the town itself. Something to note is that at multiple points traversing the village, we do see some regular villagers swanning about, avoiding both us and the creature. One of these I assume is Tekla, and the other is Claudia's dad, Gabriel. Paul sees both when he's outside the town's bakery. Whoever lived here wore a Moroccan bracelet inscribed with the word Leon in one of the Berber languages. There's also some union posters, and whoever this Leon guy was, he was hated for his protests, trying to get the miners more rights. His bakery's burnt down and remains seemingly in a ditch somewhere. Going into the town hall, he finds a key for the city's power grid, which he uses to turn on the power to the mines. There was more in the town hall too. A residency permit for a miner, Idir Azim, Paul's father, and there's a lot of hopping between locations here as the clues are spread sparsely around the village, sometimes requiring a bit of backtracking, sometimes you need a clue to understand another. Paul heads to the mines to look into the miners' personal lockers, now that the power's on down there. Unfortunately, they're hooked up to an alarm system to prevent any bumped heads. Whenever a locker's about to come down, a big siren goes, and this is really bad when the creature's drawn to sound. There's no lockers for an Idir Azim, but there is one for our friend Leon. Inside his locker was a photo of the woman who owned the bakery. And as a result of all the noise, once again we're chased through the village. We seek refuge in a miner's house, Umberto's, Sergio's dad, and we can see there's a photo of all the miners, including Paul's dad. Something doesn't add up in terms of him being on the permits and in the photos, but not having his own locker. When we find a Berber dictionary in the castle, it makes a bit more sense. Leon and Azim both mean lion. Leon is Azim. It's a nickname given to him by the other miners. Paul's dad and his mother owned the bakery and were seemingly murdered or ran out of town for his work protesting miners' rights. The pictures are beginning to form for Paul. While he mulls this over, he actually comes face to face with Claudia's dad, Gabriel, in the streets, chasing him back to his home, seeking some answers from a local. He doesn't stop to chat though, actually heading back to his house and slamming the door in our face. If we hide around a corner, he'll leave, forgetting to even shut the front door, obviously concerned about his missing daughter, and we could just sneak right in. In her dad's room is a box of Claudia's auntie's belongings and a diary hidden under her father's bed. Her last entry was her dreaming about a demon stealing a doll of hers. A lot of the entries speak about this demon. Perhaps she encountered the creature in her youth, like we don't know. Traipsing back into the mines, Paul also finds our way out. A monorail out of the mines into the countryside. Calling the monorail sets off a big alarm though, and if you try to leave the console, you'll step on a cancellation switch and it'll cancel the ride. Again, more minor safety. We need some way to keep the creature in one place, otherwise, well, you'll get grabbed like Paul does. While he's preoccupied, let's go through what happens when you get captured. Like a true saint, this pregnant woman walks through the streets, tracing a blood trail back from the mines to a shrine in the centre of town. This blood trail will be wherever you get grabbed from, so it's quite easy to find who's been captured. Paul's all chained up, presumably by the creature, and we can cut him down if we've got the bolt cutters. He's free to be played again, just with a massive penalty to his maximum stamina. Whenever you get captured, you'll get this penalty. Evading the creature, the two make their way to Gabriel's bar, where Claudia has been shacked up, unable to be convinced to leave. Showing her auntie's diary, she comes to the conclusion that maybe she knew something about the ritual, especially with them happening every 30 years and the demonic nightmares in the diary. A few hours before all this kicked off, Claudia was being led by her father to the ritual mass. We're also told in Claudia's youth, her auntie actually topped herself and she's been alienated by the community since. Claudia's been given a ritual mask and asked to go and observe the mass with the other villagers, hopefully a bit of integration. Luckily, the mask covers her eyes, which as you can imagine might be useful with our camera-shy creature about. She dips from the mask, probably moments after Anita arrived at the church and the doors got slammed on her, and Claudia's been at the bar ever since. Her task is to look into her auntie's mysterious death and what she might have known about the ritual. Luckily, we can use Claudia to get through some tight gaps some of the other characters can't. She's a teenage girl. Including into an electrical room under the mines which holds one of the last items we need to get around the town, a soldering iron, and a small spanner for that matter. Claudia, like the little squirrel she is, then goes around undoing bolts and crossing wires across the town. This will open up some paths for some other characters. Breaking into the castle, she finds a letter from Sergio's father to Sergio's lover Bruno, saying to leave his son alone and that he's posted him his package that Bruno had left for him. At any point in the town, we can find a little caveat of Claudia's gameplay. Her father doesn't want her out at night and will grab her if he sees her. He doesn't have any sort of rattle accompanying him either, so he's arguably worse than the creature as a pursuer. For that reason alone, a character with one of the best items for hiding from the creature is actually one of the worst for walking around the town in the early game. We're going to go to a combined group effort this time. She hides from both her parent and the creature in the castle, using the phone to tell the rest of the group she needs a little break. Checking out the school, we can see that Mara's grades declined greatly in 1964. Mara was Claudia's auntie. Now if we track that alongside all the rituals, the last ritual would have been 5 years before that date, so it doesn't explain the decline in grades. There's some slides in the school showcasing the ritual going back to ancient times, and a drawing from Damiano's youth of the creature kidnapping someone. The ritual goes back a long time, and the whole town has known about it, to the point where even the kids are complicit. When the group head back to the castle to do a bit more digging, they're convinced there's a hidden room somewhere, but it's just not visible to the naked eye, no matter how much Anita goes around looking. Going back to the town hall for some building plans, we uncover some inconsistencies. There's an official mine photo celebrating the miners, and it doesn't have Paul's dad in it. His presence is being covered up. Worst of all, with all the castle plans, we can find our way into the secret room, and there's a ton of threatening letters hurling racial abuse at Paul's dad, again for his rights activism. There's a huge pinboard of someone else's work that went into uncovering the creature's true nature. This was Tekla, Bruno and Paul's father, all working together to put a stop to the ritual somehow, in the past. Sergio identifies a body in the room as his lover Bruno, mummified and with a bullet in the skull, still clutching a key to the mine's infirmary. I suppose a little summary so far is in order before we start getting to the juicy bits of the game. Let's break it out by character for simplicity's sake. Anita came to the town to appraise the mine for a buyer. She had an affair with the local priest Damiano and got pregnant. On the day of the ritual, she goes to tell him so that she can leave, with him hopefully, and he tries to get her eaten by the monster. Paul came to town to find his biological parents. His father, despite a campaign to erase his existence from the town, was found to have been a miner there, married to a woman who owned the bakery. He was ostracised by the powers that be in the town for his work trying to get the miners' rights, eventually working with Bruno and Tekla to uncover the ritual that goes on there and attempting to stop it. Sergio came back to care for his father, who's in an iron lung. In town, he discovers shady circumstances about his lover Bruno, whom his father did not approve of. Attempting to find him in town on the night of the ritual leads him to find his dead body, bullet wound included, in a room only Tekla and Paul's father had been present in. Claudia is the only local from town that we can play as, and she lives there because of her father. She escaped the ritual mass and is looking into the circumstances behind her aunt's suicide. There's a creature stalking the town that comes out every 30 years since the Roman times in a Saturnalia ritual. It's actively hostile and will attack any and all who look upon it, with villagers locking themselves in at night and wearing specifically fashioned masks during the ritual night. It may or may not be originally human, but it is clearly real, we've got evidence of it. Tekla, Paul's father and Bruno were planning to flood the mines to kill it for good, so what happened? We can also note that throughout the night the creature seems to get stronger as the ritual carries on, becoming more aggressive and gaining some new abilities, including being able to make the place darker. Let's get back to our characters. I'm going to call this chapter Anita 2, and Anita turns out to be one of the best characters for getting around the town because of her map and her compass. After Claudia did her due diligence and unlocked various areas of the town, we can actually get into the lower floor of the bakery. We can find a sparking phone and a loose gas pipe. We set up a future gas leak here and find a photograph of Paul's father and his mother, confirming they were running the bakery. Tekla actually confirms this to be true, that Paul's father thought the fire was related to the ritual, and that's why he joined their cause. Anita gets a bit tired of this digging and decides her plan for revenge should start. If we scuttle under the mines and through the crypt attaching them to the church, we can actually sneak behind Damiano and ring the church bells and, well, have a look. Her revenge is taken and her single mum status finalised. Her arc is resolved in Gravois. Heading back through the mines and looking into the infirmary, she finds a resignation letter from Paul's father around the time he joined Tekla's group, and weirdly a letter from Mussolini himself looking for a fighter pilot that crashed in the local area during the World War. Again, this ritual goes back a long time. She speaks to Tekla about the whole thing with her group, asking him if she was involved in Bruno's death, and Tekla gets a bit defensive. She does confess one big nugget when we give her sister's pendant though, that Paul's dad is the current creature. He was captured attempting to stop the ritual and seemingly converted somehow, which worries Anita greatly because she's just got Damiano tied up and he's in the creature's shrine. Tekla's group weren't prepared to face the creature and only her and Bruno got out. Apparently her sister was the creature before Leone, and it seems to pass from person to person each ritual. When one is captured, the mantle's placed upon them, and against their will, the victims of the creature are transformed. She tells us to escape through the monorail, that her and Bruno had a plan to stop this, but it had failed. She gives us a key to the basement in the villa, and there was once a secret room here hidden behind wallpaper. There's a crutch and a mercy-killing hammer of all things, and they're the only things present. Tekla was hiding something here. Maybe a person, maybe something else, but there's a holster with a missing gun, and so far the only one we've seen in the village. Alongside this, there's this hidden back entrance to the villa linking up to the dam, and a possible way to flood the mines if you have the right tool. Unfortunately, we don't yet. Oh hey, it's Claudia again. I forgot she existed. Say what? You've been looking into that aunt mystery. You found what? Her marriage flyers that have been pasted over, and her husband's house. God damn, this kid's good. Looking at her husband's house, Claudia finds a safe with a code being the wedding date, and it contains a suicide letter blaming her father for God knows what. I'm assuming some sort of essay. Looks like we're going with another round of patricide in this game. Claudia doesn't need a motive or direct evidence, she just wants revenge, and one thing she needs to watch out for is the free pursuers in town now. Oh, you heard me right. Damiano's come to play. If you get caught by her father after finding the suicide letter, he starts to just avoid you. He doesn't want the confrontation. You have to chase him to the site of the hanging and put Mara's childhood toy there. When he sees that, he goes a bit catatonic, and there's a nice, shiny, well-placed bell here we can ring to get out of second dam captured by the creature. There's just two mysteries left now: who shot Bruno, and how do we stop the ritual for good? Claudia's small enough to find a revolver hidden below in the mines that matches the holster in Tekla's villa. When we confront her with the murder weapon, the one we found near the site of the murder, she says Bruno was about to flood the mines when the creature came. Tekla saw her sister's face under its mask and fought Bruno, still believing her sister could be saved somehow. She shot Bruno, and now there's no way to kill Tekla herself, but she does give us a lever to flood the mines. Remember that gas pipe we unscrewed in the bakery? If we call the phone number for the bakery, or sacrifice a character by lighting a match, we can cause the bakery to catch fire. Leon, or the creature that was formerly Leon, with whatever humanity left in him, is drawn to that place and will stay put while it's on fire. You can actually do this earlier on in the game if you're having a hard time, evading the creature. If we go back to Tekla's little hidden dam overflow, we can flood the mines and start a climactic chase sequence where one member of the group hangs back while the others summon the monorail. I initially thought they'd just get abandoned and flood the mines and get stuck in the town, but no, you have to run through the minecart track maze from Tekla's all the way to the monorail through the mines. If you get captured, another character takes your place. And from there, we get to see the last moments of the creature and the ritual as a whole. If you've completed all the missions, the characters resolve as the following in the epilogue. Anita founds an environmental whistleblower group to turn against the coal industry, and tells her son what happened to his father during the dark ritual night in Gravois when he turns 14. Paul makes peace with his parents' fates, never forgiving the people of Gravois for the cover-up. He founds a journalist union in Sardinia and publishes an expose on Gravois and the omerta that governed it. Sergio looks out the best, uncovering Bruno's will, which granted him ownership of Gravois' castle. Turns out Bruno was loaded. Sergio turns it into a tourist attraction and rarely visits. Claudia sold her dance bar, moved to Manchester where Sergio was studying, and went into games design. Her first game is a smash hit, and it's based on the monster evasion she'd done with one dark night in Gravois. Tekla, still alive and seemingly facing no consequence, sold her villa and left to living glaciers. She put a statue of her sister up in the cemetery. In the village, surviving the flooding somehow, many families evacuated. The church collapsed and no visitors have died since. Funnily enough, if you leave without flooding, the opposite occurs and many visitors go missing. So there's a few different endings, take your pick here. So let's try and quick-fire tie up any loose ends here. Firstly, what was the ritual? Well, it's very rural and somewhat ancient. The Roman ritual of Saturnalia was an ancient festival where sacrifices were made to appease Saturn, the god of farming and harvest. In Gravois, a creature emerged every 30 years and would take a few sacrifices, mostly foreigners, and then disappear. There's no clue to what started this ritual, but we do manage to end it. And residents of the town are seemingly brought to the midnight mass and made aware of the ritual when they're a teenager, hence all the school graffiti and Claudia's intro. Though I imagine some generations must skip this as it happens every 30 years. The creature, in the game, the present creature was Paul's father, Leon, who was captured and converted by the previous creature, Tekla's sister. It seemingly becomes more aggressive as you hit invisible milestones like finding equipment, unlocking characters, and finishing quest lines. I noticed at one point it would hang around certain areas to ambush me, and it seemed Damiano, if he's turned into a creature, has slightly different AI as well. The creature at one point gained the ability to make an area around it darker, and that's a bit of a problem if you don't have enough matches to strike a light. It can also follow you into a few buildings you wouldn't expect, such as being able to go into Claudia's house. So some buildings are safe, some aren't. I think you can get followed by the creature into these buildings, even if they are safe. If you're being chased and you ring the phone to try and teleport, instead you just get your character screaming and they've been captured. You could get captured trying to run away. During the war, they sacrificed a UK fighter pilot who'd landed and hid within Tekla's house, her sister falling in love with the man. That's where they got the revolver that shot Bruno. Seemingly, Tekla's sister was captured either trying to free the man or captured by the man if he turned into a creature. I'm not too sure about that one. Damiano was just a bad dude who wanted any evidence of his affair with Anita gone. If you get your revenge, he turns into a creature himself, giving you 2 pursuers around the town. Claudia's aunt topped herself because of something Claudia's dad did and tried to hide, so Claudia got him killed. I'm unsure if he turns into a creature like Damiano can. I imagine he probably does. Bruno got shot by Tekla trying to flood the village and kill her sister creature. There you have it, folks. There's the story of Saturnalia. It's a great game, if not a bit on the harder / confusing side at times. The randomised layout of the town sure makes things hard to get your bearings, but it does give this nice theme of claustrophobia and fear throughout. Sometimes there was a little bit too much back and forth, but it is a very scary game with a very unique setting. I really enjoyed it and would recommend grabbing it if you haven't already. Over and out, Smooth Brains.